All right, let's get back into the show with some news from the NBA, as there is some troubling news about the Miami Heat's Chris Bosh. There are conflicting reports out there as to what Bosh is currently dealing with. The Miami Herald, he's reporting that Bosh has a pulmonary embolism. ESPN reporting that he may have a blood clot in his lung. Are they the same thing? What could these diagnoses mean? We're going to get to all of that in just a moment. But first, let's talk about some of the comments and some of the support that Bosh has received. I want you to listen first to Dwayne Wade, who is talking about Bosh today.
He was one of my best friends, you know, one of my closest friends. We got very close over the last year and a half. So, you know, for me, it's not even about the sport. You know, it's just to make sure that, you know, that Chris is doing good and that his family is doing good. You know, it's not about basketball. You know, it's bigger than that. You know, when it becomes about someone's health. So, we're not worried about that.
Now, LeBron James, he also tweeted about his former teammate. He said, "Man, my heart really heavy right now thinking about Chris Bosh's health, especially after hearing about Kersey the other day. My prayers are out for you and your family, my brother, here for you throughout this if needed." Now, Kersey is Jerome Kersey, who played with the Trailblazers, who died of a blood clot on Wednesday. So that's who he's referencing there. Now, LeBron also continued on to say, "Wish I could be there by your side this very moment to tell a joke or something, homie, just to get your mind off of what you're going through." It really doesn't sound nice when I say homie like that. LeBron also continued on to say, "But I know you're strong and will come back better than ever on and off the court. Hashtag prayer for CB." So, what exactly is Chris Bosh suffering from right now? What could it mean for him and his season? Well, Dr. Ashish Mehta is here to help us go through exactly what all of this is, help us, understand how long Chris Bosh could possibly be out for. So first, let's get into the difference between a blood clot and a pulmonary embolism. Same thing or two different things?
Well, in effect, they're pretty much the same thing. An embolism is something, by definition, that travels from somewhere else. So usually what happens in most people is they have a blood clot in their leg, and it travels and it lodges in their lungs, and that's what a pulmonary embolism is. So it's just, I think, two ways of saying the same thing. It is a blood clot in the lungs.
Okay, so a blood clot in the lungs, to me, that sounds very bad. How serious of a condition is this?
So, you know, interestingly, it has a wide range of severity. You know, some people don't have any symptoms and it can be life-threatening. People have died from it. So, you know, depending on how severe it is, there's different characteristics. It can be life-threatening, but it may also cause very few problems.
So if he had not recognized that this was a problem and gone to the hospital, if this does go untreated, if it had have gone untreated, ultimate worst-case scenario is death.
Correct.
Okay, so what happens, what is the treatment then for this?
So the problem with the blood clot, usually when you have one that doesn't kill you, the problem is whether you'll have another one that is going to be life-threatening. So the treatment is really aimed at preventing another clot from traveling. So what you would do in that case is just blood thinners. There's different classes of drugs that are all, in effect, blood thinners, so to thin your blood to prevent more clots from forming.
What would that type of treatment do to an athlete?
Well, so it does have very severe implications for an athlete, because in most cases, if you're on blood thinners, you would not want to participate in any contact sports, because, you know, if you took a fall or a hit where, you know, someone not on blood thinners wouldn't have any significant problems, in someone that is on blood thinners, it can be life-threatening, cause, you know, bleeding into the brain or severe life-threatening bleeding.
So how long would an athlete, would Chris Bosh, how long could they potentially be out for if that's the way it's being treated with blood thinners?
Well, depending on what caused the blood clot, that's, you know, it depends on how long you treat. You know, the minimum treatment is usually at least 3 months, but there's people that are on blood thinners for the rest of their life, depending on how high risk they are. Sometimes you can come off blood thinners, but depending on the risk, you know, you may need to be on it for the rest of your life. It just depends.
In the recent past, we've seen, you know, there's been a fair number of athletes who have been dealing with blood clots in their lungs. You know, Serena Williams always comes to my mind. Are athletes more susceptible to blood clots in their lungs, or is this just sort of a freak occurrence? We hear about these people because they're celebrities.
I don't know that athletes are more susceptible to blood clots. I mean, trauma and other injuries, it leaves you immobile and things like that, that can predispose you to blood clots. But athletes in and of themselves, I don't know that they are more or less susceptible to blood clots.
All right, Dr. Mehta, thank you very much. You've been very, very helpful. I know what we're now expecting with Chris Bosh. Thank you again.